How's it going, everybody? And welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I am here to answer all of your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. So go ahead and throw your questions in the chat, and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome here, left wing, right wing, things in the middle, things on the outskirts. You don't have to agree with me about politics to be a part of the conversation. You just have to be asking your questions in good faith. So if you're here trying to rage bait or start a fight or just push an agenda, that is not what we do here. This is just good faith engagement on the substance so that we can all go back to being civil and back to a shared reality once again. Because how can we solve problems if we can't even agree what the fuck is actually going on? So throw your questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all of your very simple questions about politics, and nobody's going to make fun of you for not knowing these things or tell you should have learned them in high school or whatever. So, no such thing as a dumb question. You don't have to be worried about being called any names or made fun of. Dan, thanks so much for helping me reach my first gift goal. I really appreciate that, my guy. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. You don't have to agree with me to be a part of the political conversation here. As long as you're asking a question in good faith, you will be given a good faith answer. So go ahead and throw your questions in the chat. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there. So how can you figure out what's actually going on? Well, you throw your questions in the chat, and then we can all be a part of being the collective understanding of what is going on in the government and in the country. So throw your questions in the chat. Saul Goodman says, how Kazakhstan can help USA. I am unfamiliar with how Kazakhstan can help the USA specifically, but if you really are examining world politics, like every nation does have an effect on every nation, especially if you're looking at things like climate change. Like what every country puts out into the world affects every other country. Whatever disease is ravaging whatever area of the world is eventually going to affect everywhere else. So it is incumbent upon everybody, every citizen of every country, to work towards everybody having a nice life, no matter where you live. All right, is that you, Willie? Did you change your profile pic? What do I think about Kurdistan? I have no idea what Kurdistan is. I don't know anything about it. Williff says Kazakhstan is number one producer of uranium. I know that because my wife always says that. Not a very good Borat, but that's not what we do here, everybody. We're not here for Borat impressions, and we're also not here for debates. This is not a debate show. I know that there are a lot of very popular shows out there where people will yell and scream at each other and try to convince people that certain people are less intelligent or try to try to own some people. There's no owning happening here on this show. Random says, do you believe we should abolish taxes? No, I do not believe we should abolish taxes. I believe that taxes are a good thing. Like if you live in an apartment with a bunch of people and you all split the utilities, everybody ends up paying less. And that's really nice. I think that's a dope system. We should do that in the country for things like healthcare. Shork says, thoughts on Trump endorsements failing in Florida. I feel like this is something that has always happened since Trump has been on the scene. Like, I feel like we really overhype whenever one of his candidates does well, but his endorsed candidates have lost in the past. I don't know if it's happening more consistently now, but it's definitely happened in the past. So I would be really curious if there's any people out there who really want to crunch the numbers and tell me if Trump endorsed candidates are winning more now or losing more now. I would be curious to know if that's the case. But yeah, his juice has always been extremely limited in effect, and I feel like more and more people are waking up to the fact that he's a con man, and therefore more and more people, fewer and fewer people give a shit who he endorses. And I'm sure that some people are like, oh, he's endorsing that person, I'm going to vote for the other one. Williff says, thoughts on current state of the yen carry trade? That's over my head. Alessandra says, what's your political wing? I'm a progressive Democrat. Alexier says, do you think centrists, even though claiming they're centrists, are more right-leaning? I'm sure that there's all different flavors of people that describe themselves as centrists. I think that there's centrists who are sincerely centrists, and I think that there are centrists who are right wing but don't want to tell people they're right wing because then people would yell at them. Zach Sparks, not reading that because that's not a question. Streets Ahead says thoughts on the Pan-Arabist movement of the 1950s and 60s. That's over my head, so sorry about that. Vane Versace says, do you think Trump's Canada tariff flip-flopping is finally over or kicking the can down the road? So yeah, nothing is ever over with Trump. If Trump can make a buck doing something, then he's going to do it. Like, his favorite thing about tariffs is the fact that all these companies will come and kiss his ass and bribe him all to hell so that they can avoid being tariffed in any one of the countries that he's trying to tariff. So long as he can do that, so long as he has the power to extract favors from corporations and billionaires in exchange for being immune to the tariffs, then he's just going to keep on fucking doing it, you know? All right, Connie and Vane, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. I noticed you changed your name, Vane, from Vanity to Vane. What is the thinking there? All right, somebody whose name is just a symbol says, today's immigrants comparing themselves with Italians, Scots, and Polish who built New York is hilarious. I don't know why you think that. What is going on? What is the difference, do you think, between the previous generation of immigrants and the current generation of immigrants? What is up, Heinz? What is up, Mikhail Meme? What have you guys got to say today? Have you ever thought about doing politics? I think it would suit you. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's in the cards for me. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe one day. All right, Edwin says, bro, what do you think about Palestine and Israel? I support the citizens of both of those countries, but I do not support the governments and governing bodies of either country. Because Israel is the more powerful nation, I think it's incumbent upon them to be the peace bringers. Like, you know, they should be the ones doing a lot more defensive work and less offensive work. They need to be the ones treating the Palestinians better. And I think that we should stop sending them money and weapons. 3X Store says politics. Yeah, how about politics in Indonesia, bro? Many rats in my country. I don't know what that means. Zayden says thoughts on DSA. I think that what DSA is doing to the Democratic Party is very productive and positive. There's the difference between somebody who is a DSA aligned candidate or somebody who describes themselves as a democratic socialist or someone who describes themselves as leftist or progressive or whatever, like not these concentric circles don't like always fully align. Like the Venn diagram isn't a complete circle there, but they're close, you know? Like I don't know if I fucks with every single DSA candidate, but as a progressive Democrat, there's a lot of overlap in the kind of candidates that they like and the kind of candidates that I like. Yeah, and anybody that is saying like the DSA needs to start their own party or that the Democratic Party is undergoing a civil war right now because of DSA, like that's complete and utter nonsense. Like parties have different factions in them, and if the DSA is exciting young voters, getting more progressive candidates elected, pushing the Overton window towards things like universal health care, I fucks with it, man. I'm down with it as hell. Ecuadorian, good to see you again, says, as an immigrant MAGA, as a weird kink into us, they talk about us so often. Yes, I'm shaming MAGA. I'll keep doing so until they stop first. I can't tell you what to do, Ecuadorian. Guillermo says, what do you think about LATAM turning to the right? I don't know what that is. Badger75 says, DSA can't be any worse than Trumponomics. I would argue that they're going to be a lot better. I believe in Keynesian economics, and DSA candidates tend to be a little more Keynesian. Edwin Ramadan says, what do you think about the U.S. get out in PBB? I don't know what PBB is. Vilad says, are you centrist? No. Guillermo says, what do you think about Nicaraguan's government saying there is no opportunity for opposition? I mean, there's always opportunity for opposition. I don't know about that specific thing happening. This is the first I'm hearing about it. Okay. Bobby's Truth says, except when you ask a DSA anything, they look like idiots. I completely disagree with that. I think that the people who our DSA people tend to be extremely informed about politics. But I also don't think that you need to be informed about politics in order to associate yourself with a specific coalition. Like there was a video a little while ago, and let me know if you're still here, Bobby's Truth, because I want to make sure that you are hearing what I'm saying. There's this video a little while ago about this right wing person who was trying to prove that this girl at this Bernie rally was not intelligent. Bobby's Truth, you're in question jail. You either ask a question or you leave. Um, and she was basically saying like, so you're a socialist. What do you think about Venezuela? Like, what do you think about how the government of Venezuela are all drinking champagne and everybody else is like eating rats? And the girl that was at the Bernie rally was just like, I just think people should be able to have health care. Like, that's all that I think you need to do. Like, I don't think that you need to be, an economics or a poli sci major in order to be into and involved in politics. Like, you can just speak to how you are feeling about things. All right, yeah, Bobby's Truth again. They can't answer any questions is inaccurate. Okay, Diana says, what do you think about this administration handling all the climate disasters? They're doing a terrible job, and the Trump administration is specifically withholding money from states that didn't vote for him, which is like that should be a really big fucking scandal, don't you think? Any Trump voters living in California or New York or Illinois, you don't you think the president should aid in climate disasters even if the state didn't go his way? Seems like a pretty big fucking deal, don't you think? Soul says, "Are you left or right?" I am left. Somebody whose name I can't read says, "Are you MAGA?" No, I am not. Julian Rivas says, "I don't support Trump, but taking Nicolas Maduro off the power was the best thing he did." I don't know. I think that was pretty reckless thing that he did there. Okay, Mrs. Sassy says, "Does climate disaster important?" Yes, climate disaster does important. Average Joe, no shots fired, my guy. Misty Lane says, "I would sooner cut off my own left hand than betray Israel." Did it? Kim Jeffrey says that? I think Chuck Schumer said that. Can somebody double check that for me? All right, Diana says, "Live in Indiana and it's terrible. Many still have no power for weeks." I mean, yeah. So apparently Trump is failing the red states also. Balora says, "Do you think liberal governments are being funded by elites and Jewish people to promote immigration in Europe?" No, no, Balora, that is not a thing that is happening. Bruno Livieri says, "What are your opinions on Argentina and President Milei?" I have no problem with the people of Argentina, but Milei is a psychopath. Like, he's not a good leader. He is failing the country. Like, there's a reason why they needed a $20 billion bailout from America. Like, libertarianism just does not work. And if you align yourself with Donald Trump, then you have zero credibility. Like, everybody should recognize that Donald Trump is a liar, a con artist, and incompetent. So if your world leader is S and that dude's D, like, then you need a new world leader. If your podcast host is S'ing his D, then you need to listen to a different podcast. Harley says, "What are your thoughts on ICE? ICE is a rogue agency. They are behaving abysmally, illegally, immorally. Like, there's nothing good that I can say about ICE, and every American should be really pissed off that our tax dollars are going towards doing atrocities in this country." Z Martin says, "How is Milei destroying Argentina? Are you for real?" Yeah, I mean, libertarianism doesn't work. He's crashing your economy. 20 billion of our American taxpayer dollars just went to propping up your economy. So there you go. Julian Rivas says, "My president likes Trump. Then you should vote against that president." Soccer fan says, "You think Trump is trying to rig or cancel the midterms?" Yeah, 100%. Trump is going to try to do things to lie, cheat, and steal his way into electoral victories, both in the midterms and in 2028. In 2020, he lost the presidential election. He knew he lost the presidential election. He started lying about not losing the presidential election. And then he did a fucking coup to try to stay in power. The coup failed, and he should be in jail for that, obviously. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be successful in trying to rig the election, but it is definitely true that he will try and that we should do the work to make sure that he is unsuccessful. D asks, "Are you left-handed or right-handed?" I am right-handed. Let's see here. Limitless says, "Why Trump don't use nuclear?" No country should use nuclear. You know, it's extremely disastrous for people and other things. Radiator says, "What's your opinion on abortion?" I'm pro-choice, but even if you're pro-life, you should still vote for Democratic politicians because Democratic policies actually decrease the number of abortions that happen. Republican policies do not decrease the number of abortions that happen; they only increase infant mortality and maternal mortality. So more women and children die because of Republican policies, and fewer abortions happen when you vote for Democrats. So there you go. Robbie Goodfellow says true libertarianism is radical decentralization, not just lowering tax and regulation. If you say so, I'm not here to get into a semantic argument about what libertarianism is. Ale says, "Are you related to Charlie Kirk?" No, I am not. Harley says, "ICE is supporting so many rapists, and you're saying they only do bad, so raping is good." No, Harley, that is not an accurate statement at all. You are aware that 90% of the people that ICE are deporting have done nothing wrong, right, Harley? I'm happy to send you that article if you send me a DM. Cowboy Patrick says, "Which side do you support in the Russia war?" Ukraine. Julian says, "What do you think about my president, Daniel Noboa?" I don't know. I am unfamiliar with who that is or what country you live in. Best Vibes says, "I agree that Donald Trump is a liar, but I think the Democrats lie too. What do you think?" It is inaccurate to say that Democrats lie also is a little bit like saying, um, what's a good analogy here? It's a little bit like saying, me and LeBron James both make baskets. Like Donald Trump is the LeBron of lying. Like he lies the most. There's actually studies on this. Like Republican politicians lie a lot more than Democratic politicians. Like this is science. Like I'm not just saying this. I'm not pulling this out of my ass. And I'm happy to forward anybody the study. If you shoot me a DM, I'll send it over to you. But yeah, to say that the Democrats lie also is what's called a false equivalency. Yeah, Republican politicians lie more, they lie bigger. Donald Trump is like the lionest liar of all time. And yeah, you can find me examples of Democratic politicians, saying things that are inaccurate, but it is way, way, way different than saying that both sides lie. All right. Let's see here. Paul says, "So you are strongly against nuclear power, but you agree climate change is a problem. Why be against it?" I'm not against nuclear power. I just don't think that we should be building any more nuclear reactors right now because they take 10 years to build. And in that 10 years, we could potentially have a completely renewable energy grid. All right. Green to me says, "The further left you go, the more honest you get." I don't know. Belvisk says, "Are you pro-choice?" Yes. Derwin says, "Hey man, what do you think about Palestine?" I support the people in Palestine. I support the country of Palestine. I think that what the Jewish settlers are doing and what Netanyahu is doing to Palestine is an atrocity. But Hamas is also a terrorist organization, so we need to recognize that Hamas is not doing any favors to the people in Palestine. Alrighty, let's see here. Mikhail Meme says, "Thoughts on the Liberal Party in Sweden having a higher risk of getting kicked out of the national parliament because of too little votes?" Mikhail Meme, I'm so sorry, but my knowledge of Swedish politics is not thorough enough to answer that question for you. Seraphin says, "If you were president, what would you be leaning politically, and what would you do for the country?" So it's a difficult question to answer because the power of the presidency is limited. So like there are a lot of things that I would love to do to try to fix the country, like getting money out of politics, universal health care, some kind of gun control legislation so that there's fewer gun deaths in America, getting rid of the Electoral College, either rebalancing or abolishing the Senate, abolishing ICE. Like there's a lot of things that I would do. But the president doesn't necessarily have the power to do all of those things. Where he does have a lot of power is in staffing agencies, for example. And the Democratic Party does a way better job of putting people in the Attorney General's office or heading the Environmental Protection Agency or heading the National Labor Relations Board or heading the Federal Trade Commission. Like that's what I want. My number one thing as president would be making sure that those agencies are being run by people that actually give a shit about the mandate of those agencies. Like when Republicans are in charge, they put people in charge of those agencies who are antithetical to what those agencies are supposed to do. Like Donald Trump put fucking fossil fuel magnates in charge of the EPA. But I'm sorry, like if your pocketbook means that you would much rather not have regulations to stop fossil fuels, then you're probably not going to be a great head of the EPA. Zaid, I don't know anything about Azerbaijan's government, so sorry. Enclave says opinion about the Israeli occupation of the Y? What are you talking about? You're not talking about the YMCA, of course. Are you talking about Yemen? Z Martin says, what's your take on in Lula, President of Brazil, who supports terrorist organizations? I don't know enough about that, so sorry. Zhao says Trump is supporting the son of Bolsonaro, who was in jail for trying a coup in the Brazilian elections. Well, if Trump supports somebody, vote for the other person. Triska says, when are the elections in Israel? Oh, I don't know. I'm so sorry about that, Triska. Big Berto says, what do you think about England banning and euthanizing American bully dogs? I am generally on the side of there's no breed of dog that you should ban because you can train dogs to not be violent. Um, that's I'm not really an expert in that, but I love dogs, and so I don't really think that you should be discriminating against different breeds of dogs. Okay, the Wizard of the Woods says, "Do you think the Alberta Canada separatist movement is funded by America for Canadian oil resources?" I'm not sure who's funding that, but I am extremely sus of any separatist movement. So yeah, do not endorse, do not condone. Seraphin says, "Do you think there's a lot of bias when it comes to hiring people into power?" Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if you're talking about government or corporations, but yeah, an argument could be made for both of those. Julius says, "Are you Jewish?" Not really. Like my dad's Jewish. Wasn't raised Jewish. My mom's not Jewish. So there's a lot of people who would say that I am Jewish just because I have this beautiful Jewish face and a Jewish last name, and Hitler would definitely go for me if he was still around. But there are other people who would say you're not Jewish because your mom's not Jewish, you didn't have a bar mitzvah, etc., etc. Ahmed Amin says, "Why does everyone talk about the war in Sudan as a civil war when it's not? Is it not, Ahmed? I'm curious to hear what your explanation is for that." Zhao says, "Do you think Trump declared criminal organizations from Brazil as terrorists trying to interfere?" Definitely. Yeah. I mean, he is not above meddling in other countries' elections. All right. Mikhail Beam says, why they might get kicked out is earlier this year they agreed to support SD Sweden Democrats, the far right party in Sweden. Oh, that's very confusing, Mikhail Beam. Trung Trey says, are you right or left? I am left. Rayan says, Israel bomb Lebanon. That's not breaking it. But when Hezbollah do it, what's your opinion? I mean, I am against the Netanyahu government. I do not believe that they should be bombing their neighboring countries. So, yeah, just put it on the list of things to not like about Netanyahu. Kim says, "Do you support the existence of any politician group, even like KKK?" I it's difficult because some of this falls under First Amendment protections. Like, I believe this has already gone through the Supreme Court, and they have found that even extremist organizations like the KKK are protected by free speech in America. I would obviously never endorse or support a candidate that was also endorsed by the KKK, or that was at all aligned with the KKK at all. Does that answer your question? Okay, Kiki says, bro, Dodik or Vukic? I don't know what that is. Monte says, why Trump is so dumb? I believe that Trump, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what his early education was like. Potentially he learned that from his dad that like you don't have to try, you just have to be a dick. I don't know. Okay, Sohn says, what do you think about Israel lobby in American politics? I'm against it. I do not believe that we should allow extremely well-funded lobbying organizations to influence our politicians. Nate says, what are your opinion on protests in Serbia? Don't know anything about it. McLovin says, what do you think about situation in Crimea? I mean, that's a tough one, like obviously Crimea should belong to Ukraine. Is Russia too entrenched in Ukraine, in Crimea for it to ever go back to being Ukraine? I have no fucking idea. I think that the citizens of Ukraine should be the ones to decide how hard they want to fight for Crimea. I think it was wrong for Putin to annex it. I don't know what the solution is, though, right now. Charlotte says, are you MAGA? No. Aoi says, what do you think about Pax Silica? I don't know what that is. Mr. Bill in Texas says, aligned or history with organization? No. Remember, many target people as supporters for T. Not really sure what you mean by that, Mr. Bill. Dave Ferguson says, what do you get about Trump being the leader of the World Alliance and the World Military Alliance? Anything that Trump is the leader of, he will eventually destroy so that he can make more money. Shork says, thoughts on Ukrainian soldiers casually wearing swastika logos. I don't know if they're doing that. I am skeptical that they're doing that, Shork. A lot of stories about the government of the Ukraine or the people in the Ukraine being like, you know, Nazi affiliated. Like a lot of that is Russian propaganda. So I'm extremely skeptical that that is even a thing. Right. Redshift says, why you think Mexico and Brazil strongly lean politically left? They both need to align with the U.S. I mean, left-wing governments are better, and so I think that the people in Mexico and Brazil just are tired of being run by right-wing psychopaths who do not care about the well-being of their own citizenry. And I also, if you I don't. The people in Brazil and Mexico should not be voting for leaders based on how well they will get along with the American government, because the American government is constantly changing. Politicians are coming and going, presidents are coming and going, and so the people in Brazil and Mexico need to do what is right for them. And what's right for everybody is voting for left-wing governments. Snickzo says, do you like Trump? No, I do not. Jordan Smith says, why are the U.S. both sides so brain dead? They're not, Jordan Smith. I'm happy to go into more detail if you like. Nahu says, I saw you in Peru. Well, that's hard because I've literally never been there. Owie says, what do you think about China 9 Dash Line? Don't know what that is. Mike Cox says, what are your thoughts about Trump and Xi making a deal to create the ultimate reality? That seems like a really weird thing. I don't think that's a real. Lanturvius says, are you aware of the USA purposely destabilizing other countries in order to profit off of it? Yes, America has a long history of doing that. Simon says, do you like Milei in Argentina? No, I do not. Now says, are you from Peru? No, I am not. McLovin says, why is ICE so hated in the US? Aren't they doing their job? No, they're not doing their job, McLovin. Let me put this as plainly as I possibly can, McLovin. What ICE is doing is illegal and immoral. It is inhumane. They are doing human rights violations 24/7. They are straight up fucking murdering people for no reason. They are not going after the worst of the worst. They are just rounding up everybody that they think looks brown enough to throw in a detention center. Judges have concluded that 90% of their detentions have been illegally done. And if you go to these detention facilities, you see that all of the detainees are being kept in inhumane conditions. It is a human rights violation. Like, I don't give a fuck what you did. You do not deserve to be in one of these ICE detention facilities where you're not getting medical care. Children are being separated from their parents. You're not being fed good food. It's all fucking maggot infested and mold ridden food. It's barbaric. It's inhumane. Like, this is a fucking America. Like, we're not supposed to be doing this shit. Nobody should. But America's whole fucking thing was we don't do things like this. And obviously there have been a lot of times that we have done shit like that, but we're supposed to be stopping. We were supposed to have stopped a long time ago. McLovin says, but people came to U.S. illegally. Okay, so does that mean that ICE is allowed to arrest a citizen who did nothing wrong, McLovin? If somebody crosses the border illegally, McLovin, does that mean that ICE has the right to murder a completely different person who did not come to the country illegally? McLovin, let me know what you think about that. Badger75 says, border patrols used to be within 100 miles from the border. That is accurate. Elial says, what's your opinion on Kosovo and Serbia? I have no opinion about that. Nor Ladishin says, if Hamas abandoned their weapons, can we trust Israel not to attack Palestine again? We could potentially trust Israel, but not Netanyahu. Like, Netanyahu funded Hamas. Like, he wanted there to be a Hamas to fight against. Him continuing this war is what is keeping him in office and out of jail. So, no, 100%, they should not trust the Netanyahu government. Random Guy says, do you think Russia is war criminal for attacking Ukraine, or is it self-defense? War criminal, absolutely. But it's also not Russia. It's Putin, very specifically. Like, I don't believe in collective punishment. I do not believe in blaming the voters or the citizens. Okay, Direct Luminosity says, you don't know what the China Dash Line is. It's basically an arbitrary line China drew around the South Sea. They make fake islands to claim exclusive economic zones for Vietnam and Philippines. It's basically making fake islands so other countries can't fish or drill for oil or anything within the ocean. Seems pretty shitty to me. I need to read up more about that. Thank you, Direct Luminosity, for the education. Ein says, even though Biden might have had a good first term, I still can't understand why they made him run for a second term. So nobody made Biden run for a second term. His inner circle, like his family, Hunter Biden, his wife, Jill Biden, like, I think they encouraged him to run for a second term. Mostly, this was just Biden's ego, I think. But he should not have run for a second term. The Democratic Party was not encouraging him to run for a second term. He made that decision all by himself. Okay, what was your reasoning behind it when afterwards they made Kamala run and almost win it anyways? It demonstrated she was Republican all along. People were actually asking for her. I mean, yeah, again, this is one of the great sins of the Biden administration was that Biden decided to run for a second term. It was disastrous. We are living through the consequences of that disastrous decision right now. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. All right, Balad says, do you believe in a Palestinian state? Yes, I do. All right, Jill, I want to let you know that I am blocking you. Jill, I want you to know that I am blocking you. Goodbye. All right, somebody with characters I can't read says, opinion on communism. If communism is workers owning the means of production, then I'm for it. Parsa says, actually lost the war, Iran or US. It is accurate to say that America has lost the war with Iran and that we are still currently losing the war with Iran. Every day that Trump refuses to remove our battleships from that area, we are losing the war more. Sephi says, do you believe in Kosovo? It is a place, isn't it? Sandstain says, out of people who have more than a 5% chance of actually being the next POTUS, who do you pick? I mean, I don't even know who's running yet. Okay, Lucas says, Canada's auto industry is being stepped on by the USA secretly as long as many other issues will stop. I don't know what that means. Jordan says, do you think Kamala was qualified to be president? Yes. Levon says, I love Trump. Why do you love Trump, Levon? Fornius says, does Democrats told to each other to don't support USA and support enemy countries of the USA? No, that is not a thing that happened. Munikar says, who do you support? I'm a progressive Democrat. RSCU says, do you know anything about student protests in Serbia? I don't. I'm so sorry about that. Lucas says, will this stop? Yes. A wise man was once asked to come up with a phrase that was true in all times and circumstances. What he said was, and this too shall pass. Okay. EP says, what about illegal immigrants? What about them? Baza says, was the USA right for bombing Serbia? Oh, I don't know. Freeze says, how much longer can Ukraine hold out in the war against Russia? And what further developments do you, I don't know what the rest of that question is. It appears as though Ukraine is doing a really great job and in fact could potentially win the war against Russia. All right. Claude says, who's your 2028 pick? I don't even know who's running yet. Levon says, I like what he stands for. Who, me? Oh, Trump? What does he stand for, Levon? From my perspective, Levon, Trump only stands for putting money in his own pocket. Trump stands for torturing civilians. He stands for torturing people in the Navy, like our fucking USS Lincoln is just sitting out there in the middle of the fucking ocean, not doing a resupply, not giving shore leave to any of those sailors. Like a couple of them tried to unalive themselves. Like is that one of the things that Trump stands for that you're really fucks with? Junior says, do you support a free Palestine? Yes. Ep says, will China pass the U.S. economy? I'm not sure if they will, but Trump is doing everything he can to make that happen. So if it does happen, if the Chinese surpass America economically, it will be directly related to mistakes that Trump has made. Okay, Elias says, which Lebanese political party do you support? I don't know. Levon says, I support Russia. Okay, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of you. You lack substance. All right, David Trader is just gonna go ahead and get blocked. Cool. Breno says, what about communism? If communism is workers owning the means of production, then I am for it. Direct Luminosity says, what would be the most disastrous Democrat to run for president? Ooh, the most disastrous, probably Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries, I think. EP says, do you think the next war is Taiwan? Oh, potentially. Yeah, I don't know. Top viral clip says, you kick someone for supporting Russia? No, I kicked somebody for having zero substance. The three things he said was, I love Trump, I love what he stands for, and then when I questioned him on what he stands for, he says, I support Russia. So that's some bot shit. Ben says, who do you think would be the worst president ever? Donald Trump. We're seeing it happen. Freeze says, so do you think Ukraine will win, but how much longer do you think the war will go on? The war will go on until Putin decides the war is over or until Russia decides they're done with Putin. Like, I don't think, I think that Russia could be living exclusively off of gas fumes, and they would still just be like throwing rocks and sticks at Ukraine because Vladimir Putin is not going to give this up unless he is forced to. All right, J Mock says, "Do you like Putin?" No, I do not. Bawad says, "Do you think there's a G-side in Palestine?" Yeah, independent organizations have all concluded that what Netanyahu is doing to Palestine is a G-side. So I'm not a G-side expert. I just look at what the experts are saying. Len Turvius says, "What do you think about the CIA selling weapons to the cartels in Mexico?" I'm against it. Ben says, "Trump versus Netanyahu boxing match, who is winning?" Probably Netanyahu. Trump is unwell. Carbine says, "Least favorite part of the Lankford bill." I don't know what that is. Sorry, Carbine. Fucking Russell Kim says, "You left or right?" I am left. Munikar says, "Are you happy with America right now, and why or why not?" I am extremely unhappy with America's government. I am extremely unhappy with the information environment in America. I'm extremely unhappy with the AI industry in America. I'm extremely unhappy with what the news is doing, both right wing and mainstream. But there are a lot of things that America still does really, really well. The American people are still great people, and America is still a great country. It is an extremely unique country where we are people from everywhere, and you go here and you become American, regardless of what your ethnic background is and what your great grandparents were doing. It can be a model for multiracial democracy. It can be what happens when people all work together, who live in different types of places and have different types of upbringing. And I think America at its best is when we live up to that example, and when we support each other, and when we progress, when we make ourselves better, when we fix things that are broken. All right. Arta says, "Hello, are you Jewish?" And then also says, "Jew doesn't read Twitch chat." I'm going to give you an opportunity to not be awful going forward, Artur. Twitch Tweaker says, "Okay, I'm clipping this and sending it to Trump and deport you." Cool. Okay. Ace Enclave says, "Why don't the military's protests before going to war? They grow up knowing they have a right to protest." I think it's hard. I think that if you're career military and you're not trying to fuck over your career going forward, your future. What we're looking at right now is an extremely petty and vindictive commander in chief. So, what's your option? Do you go along with things and hope that the dude gets impeached, and you just wait it out until there's a better, more competent, less psychotic American president? It's hard, man. It's really hard working, in that kind of environment. Now that being said, they should all be refusing to do shit. And in art, there was some reporting that there was basically like a little military revolt over Greenland, about Trump threatening to take over Greenland. So it's possible that it's already happened behind the scenes, and what we're seeing is just the kind of compromise of the military. Triska, Rave, and Numia, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And that, of course, means that it is Finger Hearts O'Clock, the best part of every day. Finger Hearts O'Clock, everybody. Knox the Real says, "What do you think about Morocco?" I have no opinions about Morocco. Bawad says, "Are you Jewish?" Just asking. I'm technically not Jewish because I was not bar mitzvahed and my mom's not Jewish, but my dad was Jewish. So if you are one of those people that thinks if you have one drop of Jewish blood, then that makes you Jewish, then I guess I am Jewish. Ethics Committee says, "Do you think Charlie Kirk was right on his political comments?" No, Charlie Kirk was a liar and a con artist. I do not believe that it was a good thing that he was assassinated. I do not condone any kind of violence, particularly political violence, as that has a tendency to spiral out of control. But Charlie Kirk was not a good guy. Him getting assassinated unjustly does not make him a good guy, you know. Oh, ready. Direct luminosity. Many really prime ministers were criminals even before they were elected. Direct luminosity, I have heard people say things like that in the past. And I guess I really don't want oh, you're talking about the prime ministers. Israeli prime ministers were war criminals and terrorists even before they were elected. I would believe that. Direct luminosity. I definitely would believe that. Timmy Top Deck says, "Who are some political commentators that you like?" I'm a big fan of Crooked Media. I like Chris Hayes a lot. Who else? Nick Powers. I'm a big fan of Nick Powers. I'm a big fan of Kat Burbank, I think her name is. Is either Burbank or Burback? I forget. Under the Desk News is dope as hell. Yeah, there's a bunch. I like Austin something. Your pal Austin. I can't remember what his last name is. Freeze says, "How do you feel about the fact that the only anti-war party in Russia was barred from the elections?" Well, that's what Putin does. He bars his political opponents from being a part of the political process. That is how he steals elections. All right, Tatiana says, "What do you think about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine? It is Putin's fault." Munikar says, "Is Kamala in the best off interest for America? I support her, but don't know anything about her." I like Kamala. I think she's a solid B plus politician. If there was a primary today, I would not be voting for her in the primary. But if she wins the primary, then I will happily support her in the general election. Davi, good to see you again. Dave says, "But the uses a real bar." I don't know what that means. Osgur says, "What do you think about communism? If communism is workers owning the means of production, then I'm for it." Undefined says, "What is your thoughts on Jake Lang?" I forget who Jake Lang is. Tatiana says, "What dog, think if the far left?" Can you clean that up, Tatiana? I don't know what that question is. Alex says, "If you had to shove a chocolate bar up your backside, what would it be?" Pass. Big Berto says, "Do you think Putin is becoming like Stalin?" I don't know if that's Stalin to make the comparison, but yeah, Putin's a pretty shitty guy. So two shitty guys. They both exist on the shitty guy spectrum. Okay, Bawat says, "Do you believe in no one is illegal in stolen land?" Generally. I don't have any problem with deporting people who have done violent crimes. I don't even have a problem with people who are quote unquote not coming here the right way and are not becoming valuable members of their society, of deporting them. The issue that I have is that the Trump administration is not deporting those people. They are just rounding up every brown person they can find and torturing them. And sometimes they're just murdering people. Abdul says, "Do you believe that Republican act debt and Democrat create jobs?" I think what you meant to say was add debts. And yes, that's not a belief. That's just the reality of the situation. I don't believe that Everest is the tallest mountain on Earth. Everest is the tallest mountain on Earth. And Republicans add debt and Democrats create jobs. That is just a fact. Triple T says, "Do you think that it's bad for MAGA and Trump that Viktor Orban has lost the elections in Hungary?" I mean, kind of it's bad for them. I think it's going to have a marginal effect if it has any effect on them, but it is kind of like, it's a bad precursor to the way that right-wing politics is being viewed globally. Trump needs as many, allies in the dictatorship sphere as he possibly can get, and losing one will hurt him. Okay, Just Welch says, "Are you Republican or Democrat?" I'm a Democrat. Ethan says, "Two-state solution or one state?" I don't care. I just want the government of Israel to not be shitty to the people of Palestine. Jay says, "What do you think about James Fishback?" If I'm remembering who he is, I'm pretty sure that's a thumbs down on James Fishback, but I don't really remember who he is. XX Dude says, "Have you ever read some of Anton?" I have not. Sorry. Tatiana says, "What do you think of the far left?" I have not. I believe that there are probably some people out there who describe themselves as far left that I don't like anybody who's advocating for violence, anybody who is advocating for, general destruction, anybody who does not vote or advocates for not voting because they're so far to the left they don't believe in being a part of the political process. Like I don't like those people, but what are the far left policies? It's things like universal health care and free public college. Like I fucks with that. Void Slayer says, "Why America serves Israel?" America doesn't serve Israel. America serves money, and there are a lot of people who have a lot of money in America that want America to do shit for Israel. Undefined says, "Jill Stein is likely getting arrested. From your lips to God's ears." Undefined. Freeze One says, "What if North Korea provides significant aid to Russia?" They are. They are currently doing that, you know? I don't know if there's more that we can do to punish, North Korea than we already currently are doing. Ogzar says, "What do you think about Ataturk?" I don't know who that is. User says, "Do you support Trump?" I don't. Let's see here. Ace Enclave says, "What are your thoughts on Dean Withers and a MAGA spreading fake allegations about raping women?" MAGA gonna MAGA. So obviously, if you're a left wing person, you are a target for them. Ace Enclave says, "Thoughts on the federal government trying to make it so local governments can't regulate AI?" This is what happens when Republicans are in charge. They will acquiesce to the people that have all the money and have all the power in lieu of doing things that are good for their constituents. Edit says, "Do you support Trump?" No, I do not. Amin says, "America first or Israel first?" So let me answer that question as clear as I can. I mean, definitely not Israel first, but America first also means doing global aid. Like USAID was helping poor and diseased people in other countries, but that was also helping America and American citizens. America first should also mean avoiding global nuclear war by providing assistance to Ukraine defending themselves against Russian aggression. Like America first doesn't mean zero foreign aid. America first, if America first does mean that, then that's a bad political philosophy, in my opinion. Yassine says, "What do you think of the Western Sahara of Morocco?" I don't know anything about it. Fabio says, "Do you know anything about Brazilian politics?" Very, very little. Fawad says, "What are your thoughts about Abdul El Sayed?" I like him a lot. I think he's great. I think that I heard some reporting that him and his team were getting a little high on their own supply, getting a little too big for their britches. I hope that the closeness of the primary election maybe gave them a little humility. It seems that they have heard that lesson already. I just hope that they maintain it because I think the thing that brings down great progressive candidates is ego, is thinking that you're the next coming of Obama. All right. Mudikar says, "How is America so great?" I mean, there are so many wonderful things about America's past, about the culture of America, about the citizens of America. Like if you look at the World Cup that just happened and all these people coming in and experiencing American culture and partying with Americans and just everybody just enjoying this great sport together, like you really do see what is wonderful about this country. Does that mean that America is perfect? Absolutely not. Does that mean that America has a perfect history? Boy, oh boy, is that not true at all. But there are lots of great things about America, and I'm happy to go into more detail on that if you like. All right, where are we at here? Ep says U.S. debt are not even debt. Don't know what that means. Lexream says, "Do you know about Boris Nemkov?" No, I don't. Isan says, "What are your opinions on Austrian economics?" Don't know anything about it. Tatiana says, "What do you think of Iran supporting Russia?" I am against any nation that is supporting Russia. Like I don't support the government of Iran, but I also don't think that we should be at war with them because we are currently losing that war. Maybe when we get a, I don't know, not incompetent head of the Department of Defense, maybe when we get a not incompetent and corrupt commander in chief, we could revisit doing something about the theocratic dictatorship of Iran. But right now, the best thing we can do is just leave. And any nation that is giving support to Vladimir Putin trying to annex Ukraine and trying to reconstitute the USSR and potentially attacking NATO countries, like that's a bad government right there. So like the government of Iran, North Korea, China, yeah, just bad actors all around, my guy. All right, Panchoa. I don't know. Tetsurimo says, "Who are you?" My name is Jared Berenstein. I'm a stand-up comedian, but I also know a lot about politics, and I live stream 5 days a week, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, so that I can try to educate people about politics, educate them about how to be involved in politics, and hopefully try to undo some of the misinformation and propaganda that is running out there around rampant out there. App says, "Should U.S. have more than two parties?" The U.S. currently does have more than two parties. Now, there is an ascendancy to the Republican Party and the Democratic Party that makes it very difficult for libertarians and the Green Party and the Working Families Party, etc., to gain any kind of foothold. But there are sort of like electoral maneuvers that keep them from being that way. There is other work that they could do, like winning at the state and local elections, getting ranked choice voting approved, things like that. All right, Munikar says, "Yeah, sure. Can you tell me more about the history?" Absolutely. Let's see here. The history of America. Things are all right. Now, admittedly, this is a little bit of like America fixing its own goal, but the Voting Rights Act and the Equal Rights Amendments are examples of America being the best version of itself. America passing laws saying that everybody has the right to vote and you are not allowed to discriminate against people for their race, for their sex, or anything. That's amazing. It is amazing that a government that was set up empowering just straight white men eventually listens to their citizens enough that they unclench the reins of that power even a little bit. And obviously, ever since that, it's not like, this has been a utopia of, multiracial democracy, but it was a step in the right direction, the fact that America created civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King is incredible, the art that has come out of America. American culture is incredible. Whether you are looking at music, or like there was a time when people thought that you couldn't make good wine in America, and we have done it. Let's see here. What else is amazing about America's history? First black presidents, fucking Barack Obama. Paris Climate Accords, the Iran nuclear deal, normalizing relations with Cuba. Like, there was so much to be proud of in 2008, All right, somebody whose name I can't read says, "Are you a Trump supporter?" No, opposite. KG says, "Are you believe that oligarch control a country and the true leader of a country?" Yeah, it's a little overly simplistic, KG, but I generally agree with that. What is up, Ruselix? Thank you for subscribing to my Twitch channel. Appreciate that. Duncan Crossbury says, "What do you think about free trade?" It needs to be regulated, I think. Direct Luminosity says, "By the way, did you know companies can vote in elections now?" Kind of, sort of, Direct Luminosity. I don't know if that's 100% accurate. Okay, let's see here. Ace Enclave says, "How do you tax billionaire on their stocks when they don't technically have that money?" The same way that we tax homeowners on their homes that they haven't sold. If we are allowed to tax people on their homes, because a home is an unrealized gain, the same way that holding stocks is an unrealized gain, then we can tax people's stock portfolios as well. MJ, good to see you again. Says, "What do you think about when people in Russia sometimes can't message on Telegram and WhatsApp?" I have no problem with sanctioning the citizens of Russia in order to make them mad enough at their own government that they do something to stop the war. Jay says, "What do you think about John D. Kennedy? Was there a John D. Kennedy?" Jay Borkos says, "Who do you think will be the next USA president?" I have no idea. Nobody's even declared yet. Unknown says, "Any ideas about Ab El Mahatabon, the president of Algeria?"
Mm, mm, mm.